He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome to The Alex Marlow Show. I'm Alex Marlow, and I'm glad you're here. We had a big show today because it's fall, right? Sort of. 1,000 degrees where I am. But hopefully it's getting there. I'll tell you, my kids can't wait for it, the spooky season. I will tell you that there are already requests over the weekend. Mind you, we're still in August at the time to go to the Spirit Halloween store, as is our annual pilgrimage. So I think they're all waiting for it. But it hit 102 where I was. Do you have a good Labor Day? Mine was great. It was the least I've worked in months. I don't remember the last time I had a weekend where I worked so little. And not because there wasn't plenty of news. There is. We'll get to all that momentarily. It was more just by nature of the fact that I didn't have any major projects. And so I was able to use the time to commune with family and barbecue. So a lot of barbecue. I got the tri-tip going, got the pulled pork going. So it was nice. I'm looking forward to leftovers tonight. I'll tell you, as a man of a certain age, that is all I really need. And a lot of K-pop Demon Hunters dance party. This came up when Francis Martel was here with me a while back. K-pop Demon Hunters on Netflix. These songs are just bangers. So just one catchy song after the next. I was perusing the Spotify while I was doing the playlists for the barbecue party. And like the top half a dozen songs in America are all from this half AI K-pop demon show on Netflix for children. Completely bizarre, but the songs are catchy. So we played a lot of that. But it was a good weekend. I hope all of you enjoyed yourself. And we got a really busy season ahead. And I couldn't be more excited about it. Just by nature, I think we're really well positioned here at Breitbart News to lead the way. This is my exclusives with the Treasury Secretary, Matt Boyle, over the weekend at Breitbart. But we get a spending battle coming up. Is Schumer going to lead us to a shutdown? We got the Supreme Court's going to have to decide a bunch of Trump's tariffs. I think a lot of the crackdowns with the military, trying to use them to try to clean up our cities. I think that's all going to play out as well. Some more details on today's show, but really looking forward to the rest of the fall, which is, we're not even in the fall yet. We're in the summer, but we can't wait for the fall. Are you PSL people? The pumpkin spice latte, I can't do it. I don't, seems like kids stuff that they dress up so that grownups like it. And so grownups are, very overweight these days. We're eating too much sugar. So the sugar is bad. All right. So let's start with one other thing I want to mention. Thank you for the great response to Friday's show. A little different because I leaned into some of the spiritual stuff. I was talking about the presence of demons and demonic possession that's taking place within the body politic here in the United States. And I just feel like I keep getting more data to support this, that what's happening with the institutional left in our society. And I do include the trans killer who wrote F Trump on his gun as part of that, targeting Catholic children from last week. And then you see stuff like more details over and over again coming from the left. Check this out. This is amazing.
You get up in the morning and you doom scroll through things. And although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying. There will be news sometime, just so you know, there will be news.
So this is Tim Walz, who is the standard bearer or the backup standard bearer for the Democrat Party as of a few months ago, with a weird itch in the back of his neck, scratching his neck. I don't ever recall scratching my neck while I gave a public speech, but he's rooting for Trump to get sick and die. That's what this is about. The left-wing echo chambers on the Bluey platform, et cetera, have been discussing Trump's health and whether or not there's some sort of Biden-esque health cover-up that's going on with Trump. I mean, he seems fairly robust. He's playing golf. I don't know. I am all for transparency with Trump's health, but I've never bought that we've been misled on Trump's health in the past. There's a lot of discussion that's taking place now online whether or not Trump is unhealthy. And then here's Tim Walz actively rooting for the president of the United States to suffer and die. That's what this is about. So that's why I'm saying when there is demonic presence in the United States at this time, I think you see it very clearly when you start seeing people who are drawing pictures of themselves, looking in the mirror, and the devil staring back at them, and then they go to a church and they murder children. I think that's very obvious. But then when you see things like this, that what would possess someone who has lived this privileged life, who is a governor, who's a vice presidential nominee, to root for the president of the United States to die? It doesn't make sense, but that's really what he's doing here. And he can't act like he doesn't know what he's doing. And so Trump has been trolling the left. He put out a truth bomb, I guess it was yesterday. Never felt better in my life. Also, DC is a crime-free zone. President DJT. And even people like J.B. Pritzker, who really does need a health intervention, or he could die of a heart attack any minute, giving his extreme weight and size and unhealthy lifestyle, a self-indulgent lifestyle that J.B. Pritzker has engaged in his entire life. Where he's committed sins of the flesh by overindulgence. It is by excess, which is really ungrateful to God to live the way he's lived. And so he's out there saying that we need proof of life from Trump, and then Trump goes golfing and he truth bomb stuff. So anyway, the left was just hoping Trump dies because they can't beat him at the polls. They can't beat him at the polls, and they certainly are not beating him with messaging. I won't spend a ton of time on it now, but the left continues to melt down. Rosie O'Donnell had to make an apology because she had blamed the trans killer on MAGA Republicans. She said he was a Republican, so she had to apologize for that. They just don't have anything. All they have is, anger and animosity and Jasmine Crockett. That's all they're offering as a political alternative to Trump. Crockett was out there, and she is now going even deeper into this strange hood accent that she's manufactured. Remember, she didn't always talk this way. Here she is. Check it.
Baby, because these people, they are crazy, because they always talk about how Christian they is. Yeah, I don't know how many of them on that side are getting divorced because they getting caught up sleeping with their co-workers, staffers, interns, all the things. Yeah, you ain't got to believe me. Just go Google. You'll find some of it. I'm telling you, and the wives is being messy and petty. They putting it in the divorce. I'm like, ooh, that's got to be true, because your lawyer would know that they going to lose it if they...
It's amazing. This is actually performance art that you can learn to appreciate because of the skill in which she's able to deliver this hood language. You couldn't write dialogue more hood than this if you're trying to. I'm going to try to pause it and try to read it in a normal tone of voice. I can't read it, so that's why I'm going to have to pause. But check this out.
Baby, because these people, they are crazy, because they always talk about how Christian they is.
These people, they are crazy because they're going to be talking about how Christian Day is.
They is. Yeah, I don't know how many of them on that side are getting divorced because they getting caught up sleeping with their co-workers, staffers, interns, all the things.
Sleeping with day co-workers, day staffers, interns, all the things.
You ain't got to believe me. Just go Google. You'll find some of it. I'm telling you, and the wives is being messy and petty.
The wives is being messy and petty.
They putting it in the divorce. I'm like, ooh, that's got to be true, because your lawyer would know that they're going to lose it.
It's amazing. She's actually impressive in a way, but she's supposed to be a U.S. congressman or congressperson, congresswoman, whatever you'd like. But whatever it is, she's not going to be able to convince anyone that she's the future of America talking like that. She's trying to self-aggrandize, and she's trying to get applause from clapping seals and left-wing audience. And applause is great. Getting people's energy up is great, but she's speaking to a niche of people. She's not speaking to mainstream America with this language, and she's leaning into this because this is where she's getting her cultural clout. So the point is, the resistance politically is non-existent at this time, and that's why you've got all this stuff. They're just praying for Trump to die in the most demonic fashion and then doing this hood stuff. So where there is resistance that's substantial, I continue to say, take it to the bank. It's the Lawfare superstructure. James Boasberg has released a woman who was arrested for threatening to sacrificially kill the president of the United States. So a New York woman was busted for threatening to kill President Trump. And she was quietly released by Boasberg, who's, of course, one of the stars of Breaking the Law, who has, I refer to him as President Boasberg in the book, because all of these instances, I think there were at least 4 in all that I document. The most famous one's the Alien Enemies Act case, where he acts as though he could speak on behalf of the entire country, even though he's one judge and a left-wing guy who has a left-wing activist family and was appointed by Obama and is deeply political, and learning who these people are because they're going to keep popping up, because the only effective resistance they got, and it's why I highly recommend Breaking the Law, which everyone is raving about, just absolutely crushing in the reviews. And thanks to all of you who've read it and reading nice reviews. I'll read some more reviews this week, but I don't feel like doing it right now. But they're fantastic. And thank you. If you've enjoyed yourself reading the book, please leave that review. It's really nice. Will continue to be relevant. It will be relevant. It'll get more relevant. I'm saying, if you check it out now, then you will have the context when these names pop up. And LA, I'm sorry, is this in LA? This was the Northern California judge ruling that in LA, the deployment of federal troops, 5,000 Marines and the National Guard into Los Angeles in June was illegal. So Trump broke the law according to a judge. And so keep an eye on this, because are they going to try to impeach him for it? And you got to take the impeachment seriously a little bit, because if we were to lose the House of Representatives, and we very well could for a number of reasons, that is something that could really distract the second half of Trump's administration. So this is where a lot of the people who are black-pilled online, it is truly something that we're playing with fire here, because if somehow the Democrats get a House majority, Trump will get impeached again, and we're going to have to deal with all that stuff. They're going to have broad rights to inquire into everything Trump does, to harass him, to grind down the West Wing as much as they possibly can. Instead of us pursuing a proactive agenda the way we have been, then we're going to all of a sudden be on defense with impeachment. Even if Trump will survive the impeachment and is not going to get thrown out or convicted by the Senate, even a small Democrat majority, they're going to look for ways to impeach him, and they will do it over stuff like this. Because if they rule that Trump isn't allowed to use our military to clean up one of our cities, which, by the way, then what's the point? If we can't keep law and order in our cities, then why do we even have the military? Is it only if we fight the Russians? Is that the only reason? There's no other reason on earth? So we got to explore this stuff. But basically, the judges said that the Department of Defense had violated the Posse Comitatus Act, which generally prohibits using the military to enforce domestic law, according to this judge. Okay. So look, the court's got to work this stuff out. And I'm not saying we should defy court orders, but the lawfare superstructure is the main resistance to Trump at this time. And that's why you're seeing so many retirements, so many Democrats getting out or running to just make sure that they've solidified their flank. By the way, Ilhan Omar, we learned that when she got to Congress, she had negative net worth, and now is at a $30 million net worth after about 6 years. So good for her. She's really figured out a way to make a lot of money in the Congress. So that's very noble when you're able to take your position in power and to be able to make $30 million in just a few short years. So congratulations to her. She must be very good at trading stocks, and she must just do it all on her own. All right. So the big story, the big retirement, though, from over the weekend, and the one that you knew I was going to go here, and this is one that is devastating, absolutely devastating for me, and that is that Jerry Nadler is stepping down. You guys know that Nadler is amongst my favorite characters at Breitbart News. He is by far the shortest congressman. He's has a reputation for being incredibly stinky. He stank. And this is something that is well known in Washington, that he's got some sort of condition where he just reeks and walks around and smells terrible. And he is, of course, a committed left-winger involved in all the impeachment stuff, all the lawfare. I've got so many classic Nadler videos that I'll have to dig up as he makes his swan song. But Nadler he's allegedly 5'4". I think he's like 4'10". But he peaked at about 400 pounds. They say 340, but I don't buy it. And since he's been working on his weight, and I would make fun of him because of his eating habits, which some of you find this to be just beneath me humor-wise. But let me read to you from the New York Times. Okay, this is from a New York Times article from 2002. That when Nadler, who was 55 at the time, was in the process of losing weight and trying to shed some weight, he had also had an operation. He had the stomach stapled or whatever it is, so that he would not be as hungry. So Nadler said he had to change his eating habits because he was feeling terribly uncomfortable if he eats too much. This is the New York Times I'm reading from right now. In the past, he would typically consume a salad, a bowl of onion soup, a 14-ounce ribeye steak with French fries, vegetables. You got a balanced diet, food pyramid and all. Bread and butter and a dessert, all washed down with Diet Coke. Okay, he goes on. He also snacked constantly on Oreo cookies, Fig Newtons, and here it comes, guys, Frankfurters, hot dogs. He snack on hot dogs, and even tuna salad and chicken salad sandwiches. Could you imagine putting down a 14-ounce ribeye, some fries, and onion soup, vegetables, bread and butter, and then thinking, you know what I need for a snack? Chicken salad sandwich. They chopped up chicken and mayo and white bread. Ugh, gross. So, but this is where I got my my line where I said that he no doubt is the guy, because the hot dogs are fully cooked, who takes the Frankfurter out of the package in front of the fridge, in front of an open fridge, takes the jar of mustard, dunks the Frankfurter in, swirls it around a couple times, and chomps at it. There's no doubt that he's doing that because someone does it, and if anyone's doing it, it's this guy, a guy who puts down the giant Sunday dinner for lunch on a normal day with dessert, and then still needs Oreos and Fig Newtons to satisfy whatever is going on inside of him. Okay, now one of my favorite lines from Nadler. I'd be constantly noshing in the cloakroom. But he really cut down after the operation. He only orders a 4-ounce steak sandwich and a Kaiser roll and eats only 3/4 of the meat. And he will have vegetables only if he has room. And he skips dessert and has nothing to drink. Sounds very dry. And he says snacks are out. So good for him for being able to kick some of it. He had some longevity. So, but that's it. So that's where I get it. That's where I get the Nadler hot dog comment. And I don't want him to go. It's worth it because whoever takes his place in New York is going to it's going to be a left-wing person. So, and they're not going to be as entertaining. So this is a big loss for me. And congratulations, Jerry Nadler, on a great career. And I wish you would continue to tough it out. But look, that's a good run. If he's pushing, I guess, what is he at now? Pushing 80 years old? So he made it. He made it. He said in this article in the New York Times, I want to live to see my grandchildren grow up. How many grossly overweight 80-year-olds do you know? Yeah, and he was 55 at the time, so he's almost 80. There aren't. So if you're grossly overweight, you don't live to 80. It's just one of those things. They don't really exist. Someone should get that memo to J.B. Pritzker before he puts down his next Frankfurter that he swirls in the mustard in front of the open fridge. All right. The other things going on, wild clip here from, I can't resist playing this. This is from Coldplay's Chris Martin. And I covered this on my Breitbart Fight Club interview with Jerome Hudson today, but I asked Misty to pull this for me because I almost couldn't believe this when I saw this. Check out what the Coldplay lead singer is doing. He gets this Israeli woman to come up on stage, and this is what happens next.
Where did you come from today? From Israel. Okay, wow. Okay, well, listen. I'm going to say this. I'm very grateful that you're here as humans, and I'm treating you as equal humans.
So this woman comes up on stage for some reason. I think she had a sign. He calls her up and she says she's from Israel, and he acts very uncomfortable. And he says, I'm grateful that you're here as a human, regardless of where you come from, implying it's a sin to be from Israel.
No, regardless of where you come from or don't come from. Thank you for being here. We're grateful, and thank you for being loving and kind. And although it's controversial, maybe, I also want to welcome people in the audience from Palestine, because
he also wants to welcome people in the audience from Palestine, which is not a real state.
We have, I believe that we're all equally human. And thank you for being here.
And we're all equally human. So the implication is that someone was suggesting that you're not equally human if you're a human. Aren't we all equally human? It's just so uncomfortable. And it's just noteworthy because I point this out in Breaking the Law when we're talking about hate crimes and how there's virtually no hate crimes against Christians and hate crimes, even if they're identified against Jewish people, that there's so often judges, so often that people try to make some sort of point where you can't mention anything that has to do with Israel or the Jews without also having to do a sop to the pro-Hamas wing of the left that feels like you always have to name check Palestine all the time. Now, I understand that there's some suffering that goes on there, almost all of that at the hands of Hamas. But it really is just Hamas propaganda that you can't say the word Israel without saying, oh, wow, by the way, shout out to Palestine because I said Israel. Extremely strange that we feel compelled to do this. It just feels like something we're not thinking about. It feels like if we thought a little bit harder that people would stop doing that, but people can't. They can't seem to help themselves. So that's what goes on at normal concerts, I guess. Is that really what happens? That happened at a lot of concerts? I couldn't go to concerts if that's. I don't really go to a lot of concerts. He's going to fill me in if this is something that's still going on, where the woke celebrities doing stupid things instead of just singing. All right. I bring that up partially because everyone had a blast over the weekend at Greta Thunberg, who you guys are all familiar with if you're listening to my show, because you will hear things like this.
How dare you?
This child who has some issues likely autistic, I'm guessing somewhere on the autism spectrum, who was put out as a prop in a very controlled way to be a spokesperson for the Green movement. But now she's moved on. She moved on to Palestine. So she is a Gaza flotilla that was apparently going to set sail from Spain and then deliver supplies to Palestine. And that didn't happen. So weather made her turn around. And everyone online, if you've not seen it, that she's got a new haircut. It really is strange. It looks like she's got the fringe bang right in the middle of the forehead, which is never a good look. Never a good look. I've been trying to find it. Someone sent me the picture of who looks good with the bangs in the middle of the forehead. I have no idea why people do this this intentionally not cute haircut. I don't think Greta wakes up thinking about being cute every day. I don't think that's on her to-do list, but really interesting that she's got this horrible haircut. But she's doing this aid flotilla, setting sail for Spain, doesn't make it, and but it's just a reminder that this was a person who cares the most about climate, but also the Hamas-run Palestinian territories. So that's it. So just note that this is why we connect all these dots we got our red yarn and we got our corkboard, because the global left, that they focus on priorities in order to move money and to move people. That's how they come up with their priorities. They're looking at energy. They're looking at how do we get money, how do we get people to advance left-wing Marxism, essentially. Left-wing Marxism redundant. But you see my point. That's why these are all connected. That how could the climate chick also be the Gaza chick? Well, this is how. It's part of an organized network where they just move people in order to try to get attention and get energy. And her flotilla not making it means we dunk on her, but also reminds people what she's doing. So this is how noting how the left operates is a service that I try to provide for you on the show and at Breitbart News. Another example that we're reporting on Breitbart today. Two largest teachers union in the U.S. funneled $43.5 million to left-wing groups. So one of the reasons why the Department of Education needs to shut down, one of the reasons why we have some of the burdens that we have in our country in terms of young people not getting educated is because of the unions. The public sector unions, where you've got left-wing people negotiating with other left-wing people about how to spend your money, where it's not an adversarial negotiation. It's a negotiation where both sides agree, essentially, on what to do. We want to get as much money as we can, and we want to spend it as inefficiently as we can so we can go ask taxpayers for more. And then you learn that these unions have dumped $43.5 million into left-wing groups since 2022. That's where the energy gets created. So Catherine Hamilton writes for Breitbart News, national nonprofit group Defending Education released a report last week detailing the contributions of the National Education Association, NEA, and the American Federation of Teachers for far-left groups and causes, citing disclosures to the Department of Labor. And Fox News had the scoop on this, and we added on to it at Breitbart News. But the unions funnel $1.5 million to groups like the Tides Foundation, the 1630 Fund, New Venture Fund, and Future Forward, which is a pro-Kamala Harris group. It's all dark money stuff. All of these groups get mentioned in our reporting Breitbart News on regular basis. This is the network that they're turning it's taxpayer funds, it's left-wing energy, and it's all used to create a result that creates jobs and activism and energy for their movement, but it's at the expense of our students who are getting more poorly educated each and every day. All right, one other one that I will mention that's positive, and I will make sure to help all of you help me in this regard. Trump has added digital content creators to the no tax on tip rule. There's a big topic over the weekend. He was big for Labor Day, a lot of no tax on tip talk for Trump. And you can now tip me for my benefit, and the government won't get a cut of that. I'm going to have to set up a tip jar. You have $25K, and that's pretty good, because I'll tell you, when I get ads and get great sponsors on the show, I'm only getting a fraction of the advertising budget, but if I get a tip, that's for me. I get that, and that's pretty cool. So I appreciate that. It makes a lot of sense, because there are a lot of people who are in industries that deserve a tip but are not customarily tipped. And I think that this is culturally, I think there's a positive thing that could happen from this. But also, it's interesting just to have one carve out that if you wait tables or if you drive a cab, then you get $25K tax free, and then other jobs that are providing services don't. So I think it's a nice adjustment, and I think it's another cool way to remind younger people, all of whom think of themselves as content creators now. It's just commonplace. Everyone thinks they're content creators. Everyone thinks they're some Instagram celebrity. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but everyone thinks they are. It just adds them to our huge tent that we're building. All right, last one before I go to my great interview I have with Jon Levine. Jon Levine's an amazing guy. He's a great reporter. He's at Washington Free Beacon now, but he was at the Washington Post. He is Levine Jonathan on Twitter. If you want his X handle, you should get that. You follow him. I do. And he's got a big scoop on the California fires. But before we bring him in, the hottest news item in normal circles today is the new Vogue editor. So Anna Wintour, very famous, 37 years, memorialized or not memorialized. How do you memorialize someone who's alive? I should know this. I got to look up what that word would be. But I would say familiar to people a lot through the Devil Wears Prada movie. I have a hard time saying that for some reason. So the Devil Wears Prada movie made her even more famous than she already is, but really iconic leader in the fashion world. And she's tapped her replacement. And I actually have a take on this, believe it or not. Chloe Mall, who is a longtime Vogue employee, but someone who was an acquaintance of mine because we went to high school together for a year. And I knew Chloe. We were friends for the year that she was at the high school I attended, Harvard Westlake, before moving to New York and living there, I think, ever since. Her mother is Candice Bergen, who's famous for being Murphy Brown and was in a bunch of other movies and TV. So world famous. Father, Louis Malle, who's a famous French filmmaker. So the ultimate Nepo baby, which is a real thing. But I will say what's interesting here is that from what I knew about Chloe the year that we went to the same school is she was incredibly impressive, very charismatic, very charming, great sense of humor, and was very well liked in a school filled with standouts. She definitely stood out. And you know what's interesting that I say that because apparently the runner-up was the editor of W magazine, Sarah Moonves, who is Leslie Moonves' daughter, who also went to my same school. So different years, but both of them were Harvard Westlake attendees. So it's an interesting place. I had a very interesting high school experience. So anyway, it is a breeding ground for special children, and she's definitely one of them. So I'm not shocked that she's in this spot, but it'll be interesting because we're all thinking about the politics of it and how Vogue has done this deliberately politicizing the fashion world more than already has been by refusing to put the most glamorous first lady in the history of our country on its cover, and that is Melania Trump. And so will the decision be made to challenge your own readership and put Melania on the cover, or will it be to stay the course? And she's probably a stay the course type pick. She's an Anna Wintour protege, and their business is doing pretty well. From what I'm able to glean, Vogue gets tons of advertising, and so they are on relatively strong footing for a print media, I would say an old dog in the print media space. So someone who's been around for a long time and it prints a bunch of stuff on dead trees. So of course her task can be digitizing and trying to optimize for the future. But overall, that's a pretty stable business. So unfortunately, my prediction is there won't be any major changes. But she was definitely an interesting person and different from the personality, the reputation that Anna Wintour has in public. I've never met Anna Wintour, but known for being a real tough boss. I'm fine with tough bosses. I've worked for tough bosses in the past, and it's fine to have a tough boss. But it is a niche thing, but it can show real leadership in the fashion world, which is a huge part of our culture. So will Vogue change and perhaps be more inclusive of people who are not in the just the fashion elite subset? Maybe not, but I'm interested. And that's fun for me on the show because I like being interested because when you have an acquaintance who rises to great heights and maybe could be an interesting, different voice in a world that is really sort of insular and not accessible to a lot of people. I don't know, maybe there's hope, but the Nepo baby thing is real just because when you come up in a life where you are in such a privileged class, you get bubbled. And that's the thing, is that you hang around Beverly Hills and Long Island and French wine country enough, then I don't know if you're really going to be able to talk to people in middle America, but that's not what Vogue is. Vogue is talking to the fashion elite. But I'm interested, and so we'll see what happens. It'll be something to track, and I'll let you know if I have any interesting observations, considering I have a little extra information than your average editor who will be covering such things. So that's it. All right, that's it for now. Let's bring in Jon Levine, and we'll be right back after this. All right, good coffee is easy to find, but great coffee, that is much harder to discover. And when I was introduced to Crockett Coffee, I knew this was special. It's roasted to perfection in small batches by experts who love the taste of great coffee, and I love the taste of great coffee. I'm really precise with it. I got a nice espresso machine. I get the scales out. I try to do it right, and this coffee justifies the effort. I feel like a Western settler when I drink it, and also I feel like a tired blogger who needs to, get revved up to do some podcasting. Whatever you are, it fits your lifestyle as well, because they got the K-Cups, they got the decaf, they got the light roast, dark roast, they got a mushroom organic blend. I'm a dark roast guy, but the others are great as well. And plus, these are good people. It's not just about the beans, which are great, but also they give back to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, showing that they never forget. And we like these guys, Buck Sexton, Clay Travis, great broadcasters, good friends as well. So it's good to support them because they fight for freedom when they're not making coffee. My first name, Alex, gets you 20% off at checkout. You go to crockettcoffee.com. crockettcoffee.com, 20% off at checkout with the code Alex. All right, new guest to the program, Jon Levine is here. You probably know his work when he was at The Wrap, and he's a media reporter there. He was at the New York Post, got a lot of cover stories there, a lot of great stories over the years. Now he's at the Washington Free Beacon, and he had a story in California that really caught my eye. But Jon, first of all, welcome to the show. Normally we like to play Alan Parsons Project, but Misty's doing her other job right now, so she can't add. I like the Chicago Bulls walkout music for the podcasting space. But I want to start with, you're a New York transplant. I think of you as a New York guy. I know you're down in DC now, but what is your assessment of the Mamdani rise? Because I look at it as someone from California, and this will be our segue in a minute, that we've already gone through the communist revolution out here. It's going horrible, and no one cares about us. Like, people were actively rooting for our city to get burned down, it felt like earlier this year. So I think I'm a little more bemused by the Mamdani stuff by some others.
I think it's a combination of a lot of factors. I'll tell you, a long time ago, an Eric Adams person said to me, and this was before he was indicted with all his issues, if Trump wins re-election, there's going to be a crazy progressive backlash in New York City that's going to sweep away Eric in a primary. And this was a long time ago, before things developed as they did. And it didn't quite go that way, but I think that genuinely was kind of true. There is a very strong progressive force in New York City. Democrats outnumber Republicans like 8-1 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And running against Trump is just very, very good politics. And then you add to that a couple of unique factors, like, look, we have ranked choice voting in New York City. I don't think he would have won a head-to-head race against Cuomo, or a first-past-the-post race against Cuomo. But because of ranked choice voting, he was able to quickly consolidate all the progressive vote there. And
it's a very smart point, by the way, and I want to interject just briefly on it, because I think ranked choice voting really does favor the left, and it's something that I've made a point to look into it. I never have, and this is one of these things where I feel like this is worthy of a real deep dive into where ranked choice voting has gotten the country in a lot of trouble.
Because you had basically Cuomo and then 6 other far-left candidates.
Yes.
And where normally those far-left candidates would have split the vote amongst themselves, but now, they all rank Cuomo last. So it's like, okay, you're going to vote for this far-left candidate, and Zoran's your number 2 choice. But then when you are eliminated, all your votes go to Zoran. Right. And so it allows, instead of allowing someone like Cuomo to win the race with a plurality, it creates a system for the progressive vote to get united in subsequent rounds of voting. So it absolutely does favor the left. There's a world where it could favor the right in certain other states if you just have the reverse, where there's a lot of far-right candidates and one moderate, but we haven't seen that yet. And also, it's important to say this too, housing is really out of control in New York City. Yeah. Your average rent on a studio apartment is something like $4,500, $5,000 a month. And it's not a nice apartment either. It's usually going to be some 200 square foot dump.
Yeah, so, and this is, I'm glad you're raising this as well, because I'm saying this, I'm trying to warn people on the right, and I'm generally a pretty, what's the opposite of black pill, green pill? Like, what's the positive pill?
I've heard of red pills, black pills. Blue pill was when you're you're like with the Matrix. No
Yeah,
one
with
wants
the
to take
Matrix.
blue pill.
Yeah, I'm just positive pilled, mostly white pilled. White pill. There you
White
go. It
pill.
was white
Okay,
pill.
I don't
That's
know
what,
that one, but I'm
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
glad.
yeah. So I'm mostly white pilled, but I'm very nervous about how my side is going to deal with this issue. That there really is it is the rent is too damn high, and we don't really have a plan.
It is, and I will say, like, part of the reason it's so high in New York is because we just don't allow anything to get built.
Yeah.
You have the bureaucracy and the red tape is crazy. It costs like $1 million to dig a hole. You've got to go through zoning boards, community
Yes.
boards, co-op boards, these little old ladies with nothing to do. And a lot of the leaders, a lot of the legislators, Linda Rosenthal, head of the New York State Assembly Housing Committee, lives in a rent-stabilized apartment. And she is opposed to building new housing. Because
Wow.
she has a very nice view. And you have... It's a very, very difficult situation where if you own a home in New York City, you don't want new housing built. You're very happy. And there's a very powerful constituency for that. But at the end of the day, like, people need to live somewhere. And Zoran was able to basically run a rent is too damn high campaign and win.
Yeah. And so what are we offering? Because it does feel like all the data is suggesting that people feel like the American dream is further off for people unless you inherit well. It just doesn't, it's so unrealistic for the vast majority of people. Just the idea of being able to get a house with your job. It's the, we've got 4 jobs in my house to have our house. And I'm extremely on the far end of the motivation spectrum. And my wife is nearly as far end on the motivation spectrum. And that's what it takes to have a house in LA, which is even a little easier than New York. So it's just, what are we offering this group of people? And I say this very critically of the right at this point.
The good news for the right is that there are solutions that will be very acceptable to the right that could be implemented in New York City, which is build more housing. Like, cut the bureaucracy, cut the red tape, and just build and just put them up as quickly as possible. Give the developers whatever they need and just build the stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a very basic supply-demand problem.
Sure.
There's a certain number of people moving to the city every single month, every single year. If the housing stock doesn't increase by that amount, you sort of go backwards. Zoran
also the cutting of the bureaucratic red tape is going to just mean more money in everyone's pocket, and it's just going to everything gets better.
Yeah. Zoran also believes in building more housing, but it's not. It's more public housing. It's more like in the city we have something called NYCHA, which New York Housing. I don't exactly remember what it stands for, but it's basically the public housing superstructure. And it's like, the New York City is landlord to like 500,000 people. It's a crazy number. Like 16% of the housing stock is public housing. And remember that photo of Hillary Clinton touring a public housing project in New York City?
Of course. That's one of the best photos ever.
It's one of the most iconic Hillary photos ever. I know a lot of stuff happened in that campaign. But that is what Zoran wants to build more of. And there are these famously horrible developments. I mean, look, New York City is obviously not going to be a good landlord. I mean, New York City can barely get an escalator working on the 2nd Avenue subway. It's out for a month. The idea that they can manage hundreds of thousands of properties. So you constantly, the Inspector General reports always show roaches, termites. I'm sure in earlier years there were asbestos. And interestingly, while they mandate all the other city properties in private hands follow very stringent standards for green use, they don't mandate that for the public housing because obviously it'd be too expensive for the city to have to undertake.
So what do you think happens? Because one of the problems is the right isn't even a factor here. I mean, Curtis Lee will want.
Curtis is a great man, but forget about it.
Yeah, and he's got to drop the hat. Sorry, he can't have that hat anymore.
There was literally a story about some warlord in Burkina Faso. He had the exact same hat on.
Exactly.
And I thought it was
same
Curtis in blackface.
No, it's signed. It's signed by that warlord. The warlord signed the hat. Like, no, it's the same hat, literally. It's not even the same style. Yeah. And no, it's not working. It's not, if it was working, it would have worked by now. And so that's the question.
And look, Curtis is one of those guys that's been in New York City forever.
Yeah.
Like he got going in the early 80s, maybe late 70s during the crime wave. And he was this folk hero vigilante. Police would do nothing. The city would do nothing. And his guys would just patrol the subways. They weren't armed. But just their presence just made people feel safer. And it was a very different New York City that he came up in. And there was a time when everyone knew him and recognized him and that beret that they all wear, the guardian angels. But now no one understands it anymore. Unless you're 60, you don't get it.
No, and I do understand it, and I don't like it. So it's he's got to be convincing me.
It still doesn't work.
So what was the opposition to Mamdani? I mean, Cuomo is maybe the only person in New York I want to be mayor less than Mamdani because of his history with the. I just feel like it's disqualifying when you're responsible for the deaths of a lot of old people.
Right.
I just don't think you should get elected again. And then that he won an Emmy, and then he was like molesting the Emmy in front of staff.
And then he wrote that book about how he was like a COVID leader. A Wuhan virus leader, I should say.
Yeah, I got a feeling his advance was bigger than my books.
Right. It's very corrupt. And that's part of the Mamdani problem is I truly believe New Yorkers would reject this man.
Yeah.
If there was a viable, decent alternative.
That's right.
And you've got there's 4 candidates running. And I got to be honest, Curtis, we've just discussed. Eric Adams has been indicted by everybody at this point. And even if you don't agree that the charges were dropped for political reasons, it looks very, very swampy. And Cuomo, as you said, is responsible for tens of thousands of old people being killed in nursing homes. It's just the political class in New York is offering such bad alternatives that Mamdani is going to squeak through, possibly with under 40% of the vote. But that's, they don't have ranked choice voting for the general election, only the Democratic primary.
Yeah.
Now, if there was ranked choice for general election, that'd be a fascinating whole host of other considerations.
Sure.
If they don't have it.
So, yeah, and also New York Post did a good scoop over the weekend that Qatar bankrolled over a decade worth of films directed by Zohran Mamdani's mom. So he's a real man of the people. His mom was getting films funded by Qatar.
Yeah, well, I mean, like any good socialist, he has many mansions. He has many large dachas that he can retreat to get away from the proles. And he knows how to live like a socialist.
He really does. I've been saying those toilet bowl teeth. I mean, those veneers are just unbelievable. They're Joe Biden-esque, and just you don't get those unless you're really at the top of the socialist food chain.
And he lives in a rent stabilized apartment.
Sure,
something that is well below market rate. And look, I know those apartments. If you get a hold of them, you squat in them forever, and you can pass them down to your kids. They become like family heirlooms.
Okay, so you've moved down to D.C. where Trump is trying to fix D.C. So you're there with the Free Beacon, which is a lot of great work. So it's a good gig over there. So what do you make of the crime crackdown? Are you too fresh in the scene to know the difference? Because I got there and D.C. was so cool. I got there in 2013, and by the time I left in 2021, which was mid-COVID, just post riots, it was horrible. Like it went from this is the coolest place I could have ever imagined living to I hate it here and I want to leave. How are we doing now?
I'll tell you, strictly speaking, I live in Arlington. I live in a place called Roslyn, which is a very sleepy part of Virginia, of Arlington. It's famous for having the garage where Woodward met Deep Throat. And Virginia is a very civilized place. Arlington is a very civilized city. And I have no complaints with Arlington before or since, Trump took office. But DC
by the way, I lived in Arlington too. And Antifa published my address in Arlington when I was living there, and no one showed up. And I'll tell you why.
It doesn't shock me at all.
Yeah,
I'm not saying there isn't a bummer too every now and then, but it's just when I lived in New York City, you would see a full-fledged crazy person screaming at the sky every day, at least once a day. like not just a homeless person, insane meltdown homeless person, something closer to a feral animal every single day. And it was just, don't make eye contact, don't make eye contact, don't make eye contact. Maybe it'll pass over me like a demon, in ancient Egypt. But in it's people are, even the homeless here are very civilized in Arlington. DC's improved. I remember visiting DC during BLM era a little after, and I was stunned by the tent cities you would see down here in McPherson Square and the various parks, Meridian Hill Park. You have dozens, hundreds of people living in tents all night, every night. And it was kind of an Occupy Wall Street type vibe, but it was all the time. And it was just homeless people. Those have been mostly cleared out. Black Lives Matter Plaza is gone now. Muriel Bowser got rid of that. And I think they were trying to take some steps to head off home rule, which obviously were unsuccessful because now the city's been federalized. But it's just nicer. My friend Inez Stepman tweeted recently that she was at Union Station and she didn't see a single homeless person. First time ever that's ever happened. And I've yet to experience that sensation at Union Station. But it's been a minute since I've been there, but maybe I will. I'm heading back to New York a few days, and I'll see what it's like there. But it looks better. And it's broken windows. If you crack down on the little stuff, you deter the big stuff. It worked in the 1990s, early 2000s in New York, and it can work here.
Yeah, it's interesting how you guys solved it in New York, but I guess since people didn't like Rudy or something, or just want to differentiate themselves, then they just threw out you guys solved it. You guys figured out.
You have a new generation living in New York City, and it's safe and it's nice, and people are like, it's so safe and nice. Why do we have all these people in jail? Why are we doing all these things? Why don't, and people don't understand that peace and order is not the natural way of things. The natural way of things is we're all going to kill each other, nasty, brutish, and short. It takes immense effort to run a tidy city and to keep public order. And if you have to always remember that. And what you saw with De Blasio is just this gradual, almost, I analogize it to like Jenga. Okay, let's bail reform. We pull out a Jenga piece. And, maybe you can do that and get away with it. And you begin to dismantle all of the structures that are put in place by people like Giuliani and Bloomberg. And then eventually you just the tower falls over.
Yes.
And you revert back to the chaos. And in many ways, we're still in the reversion process in New York. It's not anywhere near as bad as the 80s.
Sure.
It's going in that direction. And maybe it needs to go a lot further before we really fix it. But
yeah, that's such an important reminder, because I've been on a pretty big kick in other contexts, but this relates how I just want to make sure that our side, the MAGA side, because we're ascendant, that we're not getting complacent, lazy, and we're staying vigilant and focused, because we've gone down this road before where we take a W and then we check out for a while. And then when we come back, like, what the heck happened? Everything's a mess now. It's like, yeah, that happens all the time. And that's why you need to remind yourself.
Okay, we fixed it.
Yeah.
Ever was a consensus on this issue, but there's never a consensus. There are always going to be people looking to dismantle it. To say, no, let the criminals out of prison. Let's not have mandatory minimum. Let everyone close Rikers. Let her run wild. That will always be that movement.
All right, so I'm going to do a hard pivot here because I want to get to your big scoop from last week that I thought was fantastic. I'll read the headline from the Free Beacon. Celebrities raised millions for LA fire aid. Much of the money went to programs for illegal aliens and nonprofits that only assist Black and brown communities. This is exactly. I'm sure you can't reveal everything that went into this, but how did you get turned on to this? Because you're in DC, you're kind of a New York-based guy, and this is one of the big scoops of the fire, I would say.
I remember there was a little flurry of news about fire aid spending.
Yeah.
Like a month ago or 6 weeks ago. And fire aid was like, oh, it's disinformation. And at the time it was like, oh, well, no one's gotten any money. That was the crux of what the story was. The money's been donated, but no one's gotten it. And they said, okay, well, we have delivered it to people, and the LA Times did some fluff piece about how it actually was being spent great. And I said, the story right now is like a lot of Facebook posts. It's a lot of tweets from activists.
Right.
There was like a letter from some congressman. No one had actually dug into the organizations that Fire Aid had given the money to. And they very helpfully put all of them on their website. You can go to Fire Aid's website right now and see every single nonprofit that was given money out of the $100 million fund that they raised. And all I did, it wasn't all that hard. All I did was click the link of every single nonprofit. And I was like, well, what are we working with here? And some of them were legitimate, your church groups, your YMCAs, your established charities. Can't argue with that. But then you would get stuff like the Black Freedom Fund, which is, only for Black and brown people. You would get stuff like the Green Line Housing Foundation. Black and brown only, whites need not apply. You would get weird things that have nothing to do with fires recovery. The indigenous California Native Vote Project, which is about getting out the vote efforts for indigenous people. Why are they getting money? And maybe you say, well, they're going to help provide services to indigenous people impacted by the fire. But how many indigenous people even live in the Palisades? Okay, moving on. 10 different nonprofits just for mental health, including one that is for mental health for musicians that's based in Tennessee. It's like, what the hell? And the website was broken.
And so who is supposed to theoretically be in charge of policing stuff like this? Who's supposed to make sure that is there anyone who's supposed to be doing some sort of an audit of where the money's going?
I'll be honest. Well, right now, FireAid is having an outside auditor take a look at it. They hired Latham and Watkins law firm.
Sure.
But look, I'm always suspicious of outside auditors because FireAid is paying Latham and Watkins
right
to produce a report. So obviously, when FireAid is paying this group, you have to be suspicious of what their finding is going to be.
Yeah, which by the way, Latham Watkins, it's a huge firm. It's probably got hundreds of offices around the world, but they do have some ties to Biden's DOJ and Biden's team. So certainly they got involved in a lot of stuff, like representing Tony Blinken in stuff with the Hunter Biden laptop from hell stuff, which very well with our close friend Emma Jo. So they got a track record of doing the work of the left here.
I mean, when you're paying someone to investigate yourself and you're giving the money, it's obviously compromised. I mean, this is not it's not rocket science here.
Yeah. It's pretty easy dot connecting there. So since you put out the piece, has there been any movement that, maybe this is a problem, or do you feel like that this is just people just act like nothing ever happens? I mean, it's tough. I feel like there's a certain resignation to this. Yeah. Where it's like, well, okay, the money went to California nonprofits, so of course it was wasted. Like that's actually been one of the shocking things I've heard. It was like, well, yeah, of course they wasted the money. Like no one's actually even surprised. That's exactly right.
It's like, and look, you're a California guy, right?
Yeah.
You know that when you hear California nonprofit, that is just synonymous with, okay, the money has just been lit on fire, wasted. And for example, that the California homeless nonprofits get billions of dollars every single year. And that state is 10 cities, mile-long tent cities. It's like you lost a war.
Yeah.
Visit parts of California. So, and I, as someone that briefly worked in nonprofit land a long, long time ago, I can tell you it gets spent on salaries, it gets spent on overhead, it gets spent on galas.
Yes. That's right. And I want to be careful here because I don't want to get sued, but I'm just trying to draw from memory. I really got turned on to this with Bono's Red Foundation, which Bono announced this foundation. I always think Bono's full of shit. Like it's just sort of my wiring with the guy. He's got a couple of good songs, but it's just the sanctimoniousness of it all. He always kind of bothered me. And so I remember looking into it, and I remember that I think only about 5% of every dollar that they would take in would actually go to charity, and the rest would go to administration and galas. And I have no doubt that they've improved since then, so maybe they're fantastic now. But I'll tell you, I use Charity Navigator to figure out where I give, when I give, like how efficient things are going out. And I can't find it in Charity Navigator. So they somehow have avoided the major charity database that's supposed to be holding these people accountable. So, that's how the celebrity things go all the time. I'm not saying there aren't some exceptions, but that is the rule. The rule is they waste the money on galas, not they give it to people.
Of course. I mean, look, it's sad because Americans, when we had these fires, they raised $100 million in a second. Americans are such a generous, spirited people.
Yeah.
Such an open-hearted people. The money was there in great amounts.
That's right.
And it's just sadly just been squandered. And I tell this to everybody: if you want to help people, if you want to give to when there's a tragedy, not just a fire, when there's a flood or a hurricane or whatever, try as much as possible to give directly to people who are impacted.
That's such a great point. So I assume the governor has gotten on board and he's trying to help you out, make sure that there's accountability here.
Gavin Newsom's really looking into this. He called me up immediately and said, "John, what can we do to make sure?" We're right on that.
Oh man, but some of these things, you tie it to Black Lives Matter. They got a Black Lives Matter nonprofits getting money from this stuff. Like, I got to tell you, I spent a fair bit of time in the Palisades.
Too. By the way, illegals too. At least 3 nonprofits that just focus on illegal aliens.
Not a lot of Black Lives Matter
who are actively breaking the laws of our country, and they are receiving fire aid money when they should be getting a flight out of here.
Unbelievable. All right. Well, so what's your recommendation for people if people want to improve upon this or hold these people accountable, John?
The great thing about the world we live in now is anyone can be a reporter. I didn't do anything that requires major rocket science. I just went through these nonprofits on their websites, and I found what I found. There's more out there, and I would urge everybody to just, there's infinite more sleuthing that can be done. Go through the 990s of these places. They're public. Go do more research. I didn't look at everything to look at. It's too vast. I would urge everyone listening to do your own research. Find the primary source receipts and put them online and post them and continue to expose and to reveal this kind of public corruption. And hopefully it can bring about, because the only way you fix it is you shame them.
That's true.
Gavin Newsom's not going to call me up out of the goodness of his heart and be like, I really want to help here. You have to pound him every single second and shame him into doing the right thing.
You know what's interesting here also, and this is a sad reality with journalism, is that this type of work, it doesn't take that long, but it's not really budgeted in most newsrooms, particularly newsrooms where there's anyone who is saying politics. And you have to be a right winger, just like not wanting the celebrities to steal the money and and get all the accolades and then send it to illegal aliens. But these things are out there. All these charities have 990s and they get published. Usually every year or two, and then you can look through them and you will always find something weird in it because they can't be that careful because they're mostly grifts, or a lot of them are, and you can't figure it out. And it's just a matter of John and I can't think of everything. So that's the main thing. So if you think of something, go look it up. Like, you can do this and you can help and you can send us tips. aloha@alexmarlow.com. You can contact John on Twitter. John has a fantastic Twitter, by the way, which is Levine Jonathan with no H. So Levine Jonathan. That's X the Everything app, and very few Twitters are good, but his is very good. And I'm not as white pilled on the X the Everything app. I do find the algorithm is manipulating me over time these days, and I liked it when it was just a source for what leftists were doing in the news. But John, I told you I only was going to keep you 20 minutes. We're already over 20 minutes, but I wanted to tell you that our number one most frequent guest and guest host of the show, Emma Jo Morse, close friend of us. You guys are basically best friends. So I have to get one Emma Jo story from you that you think this audience would enjoy before I let you run.
Oh, man. The best stuff is all Hunter Biden stuff that I can't because I'm sworn to secrecy.
You're teasing us big league there.
Oh, man. People I don't want to, I have a good life. Honestly, I can't. You're killing me on the spot.
What is give me one thing that would surprise you. You're Emma is a real deal. She is, and this isn't going to surprise you or your audience. She is when what she did on Hunter Biden, I don't think anyone else could have done. And without her, and there's internal stuff I can't get into. I don't know that it would have been published. She was such an instrumental and driving force on that story. There's a lot of the, internal politics of life in newsrooms. All newsrooms have internal politics. I'm sure Breitbart does as well, where, it's history is not a straight line. And sometimes, even though it appears like a straight line at the end of it, you don't see the curves and hills and valleys to get to a certain place. And I can tell you that Emma was so determined and so dedicated with that story. I don't know that anyone. I know every reporter there is. I know a lot of people I've been around. I don't know anyone else who could have executed that story out the way she did. And had it been anyone else at the Post, it may never have come to light. Unbelievable. And that's a great endorsement. And you definitely are credible in the space, having been a reporter on this beat, on the reporter beat, you reporter on reporters. Yeah. And I agree with you. I consider it the scoop of the decade. And I think that it's very cool. I wish she was working for me at the time, but it's cool to be friends with the person who did that.
Were it not suppressed, of course,
yeah.
The 2020 election would have been completely different.
Yeah, it's amazing. Good stuff. John Levine, really nice to meet you. I guess we'd come across each other years ago, but it's great to have you on the show. I'd love to do this again whenever you get a chance. Levine Jonathan on X the Everything app. Don't miss his byline at the Washington Free Beacon. And that's today's show. Thanks, Misty. Thanks, John Cassio, for pulling clips, and all you in the audience. We'll see you tomorrow.